What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Indie Sooner. It's your boy JP, and I am joined here by my friend John Scott Shepard, lives out in California right now. Is a Browns fan, somebody that has that elusive blue check mark on Twitter. John,
I
hey, welcome to the show, man. How you feeling?
feel great, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I like watching your stuff I've seen so far.
Yeah, that's great. Well, hey, we like I said, let's get right to it. I
Mhm.
appreciate having you on. One of the things I wanted to ask you is just how you became a Browns fan. A lot of people on here maybe don't know a ton about you. Obviously, I'm a mainly Sooner account, but me and you've had some interactions. I'm not sure how many
Mhm.
interactions you've had with some Sooners fans, but I'm sure a lot of them would like to know kind of your background, what you do, how you got to be where you are.
Well, Sooner fans seem to like me a lot. I have no idea why that would be.
Wow, wow, yeah, interesting.
It could be because I'm a crazy Baker Mayfield fan. No,
Yeah,
I really love the guy. I've really come to enjoy him. I've lived in LA for like 17 years now. I've been here a long time. I'm in the movie and TV business. I'm from Northeast Ohio, from the Cuyahoga Falls area. Went to Miami, Ohio for a while. Ended up finishing college in Kansas City, where I also lived for a long time, and then I moved to LA. But I've been a pretty fanatical Browns fan my whole pretty. I mean, there's a lot of people on boards with me that are laughing at that.
mhm,
Totally fanatical Browns fan for since I was a teenager. The Browns weren't very good, but I gradually fell in love with, especially the Kozar years, like a lot of people. When it felt like that was the first time a guy like really embraced the idea of coming to Cleveland, and it was a source of pride. I didn't live there anymore, but a lot of people always ragged Cleveland, and I really loved going back and being part of the city, and kind of maybe even more than I was when I lived there, because kind of was in an exurb far outside of town. So I became more into Cleveland after I left it. But yeah, the Kozar years, and then when the team left, I had just started going to games for like 5 years with my dad. And not to get too smarmy, but it is a big, like, we hadn't had a particularly close relationship before that. So it
okay.
was a great way to, like, as an adult, get to know my dad. And just after the Browns announced the move, he passed away. And so, I passed like 4 years, following the Panthers because I was in North Carolina at the time. And then just when they came back, my son was old enough to go with me. So I literally, the last year the Browns existed, I went with my dad, and the next year they existed, I went with my small son, and continued to do that on and on and on with that son, and then my other son, and then my daughter, and then all of us were part of it. And so it's been a huge part of my life, more important, I would say, culturally, than even just being a sports fan, and family. Because I'm definitely not one of those fans that think the only way I can enjoy this is if they win a Super Bowl. It's just never been about that. It's been about the camaraderie, all the people I've met, all the people I meet at Browns bars, Browns backers bars, net games, and opposing fans too. I mean, we sit in scalped seats a lot because we're flying in from LA, and those seats tend to be a mix, right? They're, they're, if you're at the between the 30s or whatever, those are all scalped seats. And so just meeting those people and actually realizing this is fun for all of us, like to talk some shit, buy some beers, and have a good time. So it's been a huge part of my life. And this was the first time, the last several days, and maybe the way things have gone with the treatment of Baker Mayfield since he got hurt,
Mm,
is the first time I felt less connected to the franchise and the team. um, and this has been a lot. This has been a lot.
yeah.
Actually realizing Baker wasn't going to get to come back and kind of have a tiebreaker year. I saw it, like, to show what
Mhm,
he could do healthy, and maybe with better outside weapons, and
right.
open it up, and let it use the downfield arm a little bit more. I really would have liked to have seen it. I really would have. But we're not, and I don't quite know how I feel yet about the Watson thing, and I'm going to kind of step back a little bit and let that unfold, and see what it is.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for sharing just about your kind of intro into how you became a Browns fan. And sorry to hear about your dad.
Yeah.
I
Thanks, man.
lost my dad about a year ago.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
I'm
Oh, yeah.
not sure if you and your dad were pretty close or not. It sounds like maybe you were.
We
Uh,
did. We got it. I think the Browns were a big part of it. It was
yeah,
something we could do together.
yeah,
And that just gave us an excuse to go on like weekend trips and hang out and talk and stuff we just hadn't done before.
yeah,
But you just had a kid, what, 4 weeks ago?
yeah. Not even four, 2.5. Yeah,
Oh, that's
yeah,
awesome, man.
two, two. Yeah,
Well, your dad's watching.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's tough to not have him here for her, but
Mhm.
I'm excited to get to share his legacy with her. You know what I mean? There's so many
That's
things,
awesome.
just of what he taught me and how he himself, he's a great man, impacted other people,
Mhm.
and similar to you, you know that kind of Colts games, the season
Mhm.
tickets for 10 years. That was my
That's
dad,
awesome.
right? Like every Sunday. There's so much so, like my dad was a pastor, and he had to get on me sometimes because I would,
Well,
as
that's
a
great.
walking row, I would be in the front row like Dad, hurry up, we're gonna be late. Like hurry up, you know. But this fun stuff like that, man. But no,
That's
it's
fantastic.
awesome to hear about that, hear that story. Um, so obviously, as we kind of dive deeper into the Baker Mayfield saga, that's what you want to call it. It's a
Mhm.
long, drawn out story of different layers to it. I mean, you could go on, and we'll answer that question here in a second. Where do we think he ends up next? But
Mhm.
I'll give my perspective, obviously as an OU fan, and I
Yeah.
think it's going to be amazing. Obviously, you're a Baker Mayfield fan in general, but you're a Browns fan first, right?
Oh,
This
absolutely, yeah.
this is not going to be I knew Baker all the way through college. Even though you might have watched him, like you had no allegiance to him before he.
No, not until I just started liking him in college.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be great for some people to hear your perspective on how you grew to love Baker and
Yeah.
even your perspective of everything that went down.
Yeah.
So for me, right, like so obviously everybody knows the story about Baker starting off at Texas Tech. He is the Big 12 Freshman of the Year. Balls out. It is a walk on. They were 6-0. He gets hurt. Davis Webb, who is a decent quarterback in his own right, got drafted. I don't think he's in the league anymore at this point, but um, he comes in and kind of usurps Baker. Baker felt like he wasn't given a fair chance to win his job back when he rightfully felt like he should have had from Cliff Kingsbury. And then they in the spring told him, they hadn't guaranteed him a full scholarship, which he's like,
Mhm.
I was a walk on that won this job, and we were 6-0. How am I not getting a full ride? So at that point, he says,
He
you
was
know what?
freshman of the year, right? In the
Correct.
Big
He was
12.
freshman of the
Yeah.
year in the Big 12.
Mhm.
So at that point, he's like, you know what? And there's this narrative that like he quit at Texas Tech, and it's like, yeah, and then he like, was soft. People started to spin that the last couple of weeks. I'm like, you realize he went to Oklahoma, who is 50 times the program that Texas Tech is, and walked on there. His first year, he had to sit out. Right? wasn't
Mhm.
even wasn't even allowed to talk to the team. He walked straight into Bob Stoops' office. He knew Trevor Knight, who had just won Sugar Bowl MVP with an all-time performance against Alabama
Mhm.
that previous year. He knew he was supposed to be a starting quarterback, and then we went through, the Trevor Knight, Blake Bell 2014 year, which is one of the, in being respectful, one of the worst quarterback years in 2010s for Oklahoma.
I
Uh,
forgot they existed, so that's
right,
a
exactly. The 2014
Yeah.
was a lost year because before that
Yeah.
we really had Landry Jones, and then we got that 2014 year, and then we go to Baker Mayfield and Kyler and
Yeah.
Jimmy, so on.
Lincoln, it all
So
starts. Yeah.
yeah, so he wins the job outright in 2015, comes a starter, as you and I talked about before, has one of the most illustrious careers of a quarterback of all time, right? Throws
Yeah.
almost at least 4,000 yards every year, at least 38 touchdowns every year, right? Less than 10 interceptions every single year.
Yeah,
Uh,
I saw it broken out as arguably the best 3-year career in CFB history. Yeah.
Genuinely, and
Yeah.
that's genuine, right? He
Mhm.
was never not a Heisman finalist at Oklahoma,
Mhm.
and he won the Heisman his senior year, right? And
Yeah.
so you have all these things working. He's brash, he goes through certain things. The thing in Fayetteville happened, which it was overblown. Like he was publicly intoxicated, and he wasn't even part of the situation. He tried to break up the fight, and then
Yeah.
him being drunk, realizing I'm Baker Mayfield, makes a stupid decision and runs, and then he
Yeah,
gets tackled. Like it really wasn't a big of a deal as people made it out to be. The bigger deal was that he tried to run from the cops. But
yeah.
what college student has never been intoxicated? Like
That's a non-deal to me. Yeah.
right, exactly. But people made a big deal because the police slammed her down. There's fitted, whatever. So that happens. We get through that. Obviously, he had the Kansas game, which again, like, should he have not grabbed his junk? Yes. But if you sat, I don't know if you did, but
Mhm.
sitting watching that whole Kansas game, they didn't shake his hands.
Oh, they were trying to shake him. I mean,
Yeah,
they started the whole thing.
they started the
Yeah,
whole thing. And then not
yeah.
only that, he had at least three shots at his head, like from
Oh, yeah,
defender. One guy launched at his throwing shoulder and hit him right in his throwing shoulder, just
yeah.
like 5 million seconds after the whistle. It was
Oh, they
ridiculous.
made a decision going into that game what they
Yeah,
were gonna do.
it was
Yeah,
it
for
was
sure.
absolutely bush league. And so like
Mhm.
again, I'm just we're setting this up how like obviously Baker's emotionally wears his emotion on his sleeve, but like there are always reasons for why he does. He's not just rash and
Yeah.
he doesn't you know what I mean. Not going to do things
It's
unprovoked.
all winning stuff. I mean, it's how he, like, ignites himself.
Yes,
He's not trying to hurt anyone. He's never
yes,
tried to it's never been like malevolent. It's all sports stuff. It's getting fired up. It's planting flags. And I'm here for it. And I know that it's not for everybody, but I really that's how I got into him. It's not just the what I perceive to be elite arm talent, which I love watching him throw a football. I love the way it pops off his hand. I
mhm,
love watching him in warmups. I really like watching him throw a football, which is how I fell in love with Aaron Rodgers. But I also like the other stuff. I like that he ate a beer. I like that I like that he's a little crazy. He's fiery. It's sports. It's
yeah,
supposed to be fun.
yeah,
And rivalries and at least acting like everyone's here, like it's a war, which, it's always been a metaphor for
yeah,
literally when it's first started after the Civil War in college football.
yeah,
If you watch those college football documentaries on ESPN, like where they had to accept the fact that people died on the field. They said it's keeping our men strong for war.
yeah,
They really did. It's always been that way. It's not as literally that way, but that idea of extreme rivalry is
yeah,
what made how the Lakers and Celtics brought the NBA back from the brink of extinction. Nobody cared anymore.
yeah,
The first games of that final were shown in tape delay. Is to bring back not just doing it for a paycheck, not just showing up and going through the motions, which is what a lot of pro sports were starting to feel like, but that we care.
yeah,
Like we want to go at it. He brings that. And I think it's necessary to the overall entertainment value, which is what I'm in it for, is for, meeting people, family, hanging out, the culture of it. It makes it more fun,
yeah,
like if you're in a rivalry with the Steelers or anyone else, it's for fun. It should be
yeah,
for fun.
yeah,
And then you're far from home. You run into a Steelers fan in Cabo or something. All of a sudden, you kind of feel like family
yeah,
because you're from similar Rust Belt cities and you're laughing about the rivalry and flipping shit, and it's cool.
yeah,
And I think Baker, for me, fit into that,
yeah,
fit into the fun factor.
yeah,
Um, and I really embraced it. I thought he was really fun. And like I said to you earlier, I've been a fan, full time since the mid 80s. Um, and before that even. And I had gone a really long time without having as much fun as I've had since he showed up.
yeah,
And I know it coincides with a lot of other things and just becoming a better team and a better franchise. But when he came on the field for his first game against the Jets in
energy,
those all Browns, it had been a long ass time since I'd had that much fun.
yeah,
And then the playoff win over the Steelers. I mean, how long had it been? Other guys like me have been watching for 35 years or whatever. It was a long time. It
yeah,
was a long wait for that level of fun. So the fact that he had a really good 2020, led us to 12-6, a playoff victory, damn close to another one. Um, that bought me a lot more than a few months of goodwill.
yeah,
That bought me years of goodwill. And so for me, the down year that was easily attributed to injury, regardless of what else it begat, like footwork problems, the OBJ situation, the pain, the not being able to trust your injured or missing tackles, all of it. I do think it effed with his head. I do think that he became a worse quarterback in more ways than just the physical limitations.
Yeah.
But I was up to see the tiebreaker year, which would
Yeah.
have been this year. I really would have liked to have seen him back on the field with better outside wide receivers, using the big arm downfield more. I think it was going to go really well. I really do.
Yeah. No, and to your point of and where I was getting to is, he gets drafted to Cleveland.
Hmm.
I think from day one, Oklahoma fans, and there was a contingent among us, half of them didn't want him to go here to Cleveland.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
what we've seen transpire the last, 5 to 7 days is why.
Yeah.
And I was of the contingent that said, if anyone's going to be able to ride that Cleveland storm, it is Baker. And Baker said that himself. And
Yeah.
I
He
still
said,
hold
I'm the
fast.
one to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hold fast to that to this day. Like if you put Lamar, if you put Josh Allen, if you put Sam Darnold in the situation Baker went into in 2018, I don't think that they make it out. I
Yeah.
genuinely don't. And obviously, like, can you say, well, Baker didn't really make it out? Kind of, but he led them to a playoff victory, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that I think is my biggest piece is why I appreciate you. You can have a reasonable, like we were talking about before, you can have a reasonable take of, did he regress a little bit physically, mentally, maybe mentally some? Yeah.
Mm.
And do those things kind of have a push and pull, thing together? Because if you
Yeah.
break down physically, sometimes that allows your mental, especially at that level when you have to get so many repetitions. And if you're spending so much time
Yeah, you're
rehabbing,
not practicing.
yeah,
And the OBJ thing, I think, was right in the middle of all of it, and I
yes.
think it got up in his head. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think he saw it coming that there would be that much support for a guy who never wanted to be here and was trying to get out.
Yeah.
I think it surprised him because I think he felt like he and his wife had gone all in,
Yes.
like with charities and supporting the other teams and all the things you do. And my wife followed his wife, and like she was super active in trying to be Cleveland, 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 we're here.
Yeah.
And I think it, I mean, I know it did, judging from a lot of like her very sad, Instagram stuff and everything. It took him by surprise. I
Yeah.
think it was like a gut punch. They didn't see it coming.
Yeah.
So he's physically hurt, then he gets more physically hurt, and
Yes.
the leg stuff, the heel stuff, all of it. And then he just keeps thinking, I can still do it. It is not his job to sit himself down.
No.
Like, you want every player on that team wants a quarterback who's trying to, the old Willis Reed, drag yourself out there for a
Yeah.
legendary moment. They want to see you try, but they want to also want to see the team put a dart in you and put you in the closet, in
Yeah.
the storage closet, and say, thanks for being a badass. It's time to sit down.
Yeah.
If that had happened after the TJ Watt one, where his shoulder went
Yes.
back and it was grotesque. It looked
Yeah.
really bad, and that's where the full tear happened. That's when they should have sat him down.
And
And
I
if
feel like
that
it's not sorry to cut you off. I feel like that's an
no, that's
indictment.
right.
I don't want to use that harsh of language necessarily yet, but I had so many conversations where people said, um, well, it was Baker's decision to play. He shouldn't have played, and he decided to play injured, and he hurt himself, and he hurt the team. He suffers for deciding to play injured. And I'm
Mhm.
like, time out. Is that not Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski's job to
It is.
best product on the field for you to win? Put the best
Yeah.
product on the field for you to win. And if Baker was the best product, that's what they felt. They were going to put him on the field, whether he wanted to
Yeah.
play or not. Honestly,
Yeah.
but like people say, oh, he Baker himself held Case Keenum back. They didn't allow Case Keenum to come in because Baker was so stubborn. Is that really what you think happened? Because it's a business, right, John? That's what everybody's
Yeah.
saying. Baker, why are you so emotional? It's business. Okay, it's business. So how would they let his emotions get in the way if it's business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I think they were in a catch-22. I don't think they were complete idiots. I think that Case Keenum at this point in his career, he's always been like, if he plays more than 15 minutes, he's going to go to the very bottom for yards per attempt and air yards. He is the ultimate dink and dunker. And
Yep.
that was 3 years ago. And
Yeah.
that's 3 years before when he had that one good year. It
Yeah.
was like 7 yards per attempt or 6.7. And all he did was kind of keep the interceptions down, 22-7 or something like that.
Yeah.
He's not that guy anymore. He's not even that guy.
Yeah.
Like, I do think they were like, I don't think we can win with what a defense can do to easily, it's not a chess game anymore. If it's
Yeah.
Case Keenum,
Yeah.
we're bringing everybody in the box. We know he's not going downfield. It's very restrictive. At least Baker showed, even with the harness, he could still, put it
Yeah.
60 yards downfield on a rope. So I think that there was some of that playing in, like maybe we can make this work. I do think after the game 6 with the second injury, that it was a little unconscionable at that point. I don't think there's any way he should have been going back out
Yeah.
there, and it changed history. He sits at that point. We're not even having this
We're
discussion.
not having this discussion.
We're just not.
Yeah. Well, I guess, John, a question for me is, knowing what we know now, um, and I don't know, I don't think either of us can maybe say when the front office decided to move off Baker. Obviously, they
Hmm.
didn't feel confident enough, even after he beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh, to give him a contract and still
Hmm.
wanted to see more. Um, do you feel like they kind of, not only did they think Case Keenum wasn't up to snuff, but you know what, Baker? We probably decided to move off you anyway. We're just gonna let this happen. We're not gonna try to find somebody to come in, tell you to sit down, find somebody to come in that's better than Case Keenum to run
Yeah.
this for the year and maybe get us to the playoffs. None of that was ever discussed. Do you think that this was the plan from the middle of the year? Because for all intents and purposes, it sounded like, with what the franchise put out today, they had been looking into Deshaun Watson for months. Which again, I and like I told you before, I might be biased, but I pride myself in being objective. Objectively, Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback than Baker Mayfield on the field. No,
Hmm.
you cannot say that watching the two
So
statistically.
far.
So far, correct. So
Yeah.
far. And I'm fine saying that so far.
Yeah. They're
Does
young.
does
We'll
Baker
see.
have potential? Absolutely. And I've always said that. But
Hmm.
so far, yes, Deshaun Watson is an upgrade. I have no problem saying that.
No
So
doubt.
if that's what they felt like they need to do, that's fine. I was kind of shocked to figure out that they have been for months though
Yeah.
figuring this out.
I gotta feel like there's something else afoot. I don't really know what it is. I know that his reputation from college, and the Senior Bowl stories and all that stuff about how quickly everyone rallied around him at the Senior Bowl, like the natural magnetism, the snap, snap, snap story, and all that about when he ran out and instantly everyone on the team, offense and defense, was snapping for him to come in and take over. It was that he was a natural leader and a fiery
Yes.
guy that people like to get behind. And he had all the support of all the players from Oklahoma talking about him and his receivers and wanting they would love to play with him again. So it was all very positive. I do get the sense, and I don't know when we're ever going to know, that something wasn't quite right in the locker room or wasn't quite right between him and Stefanski.
Mhm.
They're very different personalities. Baker likes to be funny and outgoing and colorful, and moves in silence like lasagna and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Is funny to me. I like that, and
Yeah.
it's very much not Stefanski, and I'm totally cool with that too. I wonder if that played in at all.
Sure.
Um, I mean, his name's Baker Reagan Mayfield, and he was just a Morgan Wallen concert, and I don't know. I don't know if politics play in or not. I don't
Yeah.
even know much about the guy. I don't know if he's political at all. I know he did the right things on the vaccine, and I know he seems well liked. It doesn't seem like a racial thing to me so far.
Yeah.
But I don't know. There was some. It feels like something happened in the locker room. It does seem like it was after the injury though, and with the OBJ thing.
Yeah.
And I don't quite. I wish we could find out because I'd
Yeah.
like to know. I'd like to know.
Yeah, no, I agree, because, and that I think that's what's been, and as we get into kind of what's transpired, I'm sure we'll continue to talk about, you know, each year of Baker and what happened. But as we get into these last 72 hours, right, where we find out
Mhm.
Deshaun Watson is coming to the Browns, and is making these decisions, with some of the stuff that's come out, right, like even when Chris Mortensen goes on ESPN and says that they're looking for an adult.
While they're bringing in a guy facing 22 indictments. Yeah,
Correct.
I mean 22
I,
lawsuits.
I think where I got confused was, what Oklahoma fans have always known about Baker, and what was known about Baker early in his Cleveland career, is that he's a guy that galvanizes people. That's one
Hmm.
of his best traits. And
That's
so,
how it seemed to me. Yeah.
yeah, and so to go from, and even, I mean, last year, like, they're in winning covers a multitude of sins, right? It does.
Hmm.
But
Oh, always.
you go
And
from
losing
last
makes
year,
everything look bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
you go from last year and how, like, just together they seem, even with all the COVID stuff. Kevin Stefanski out of Pittsburgh, didn't matter. They got it done, right? They
Yeah.
were,
Rolling out the red carpet, all the celebrations together. It seemed like they were all very close.
it did,
Yeah.
and even let's talk about going into the summer, like OBJ and Jarvis Landry and Austin Hooper go to Bake's hometown for a
Hmm.
week,
Yeah. It
and
seemed like they
and,
were pretty together then.
and Jarvis Landry puts Baker didn't push it. Jarvis puts it on his YouTube for his little video series he's doing, right? Where
Hmm.
he's videoing them throwing at Baker's high school and at Baker's house eating together and on the lake, right? Baker's
Hmm.
in the front with Emily jamming.
Yeah.
OBJ's having a good time. Jarvis having a good time. That's, to me, is not people that don't like their
Yeah.
quarterback, right? So
Hmm.
if you want to say something happened, like you said, once the OBJ thing happened, that's fine. But it seems like they're making it seem like he was never liked in the locker room. He was never a leader in the locker room, which is shocking to me. And
It
I don't
is to
feel
me
like,
too.
but I'm not in there, so I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. It doesn't seem to match up to his history, for any of the stories from Oklahoma, and certainly doesn't match up with anything we heard his rookie year. It does seem like it all started after that,
Yeah.
and it was never big enough or like combustive enough to be heard. So
Hmm.
I think it might be subtle. Is all I can think of is that there was. I'm sure there was disappointment on his part.
Yeah.
Is the vibe I get that he felt like um, that he was friends with OBJ and OBJ's dad. He said
Yeah.
that he had a good relationship with them, so he felt a little blindsided. I think he also felt like the Browns did not instantly rush to his support. When he was being denigrated, it would have been really nice for Stefanski or AB or someone to say, hey, he's gotten it out. He's injured. He's doing the best he can. I really don't like seeing video compilations put together right now.
Yeah.
This seems like kicking a guy who's doing the best he can to get out there and help the team win. They didn't do that, which also adds credence to what you've been saying. Like it felt like, and I know Baker didn't like the way they talked about the injuries, saying they weren't affecting his performance, which seems like cuckoo. Like literally, like leading up to the moment of the injury, he completed 9 straight and it completed 82% over the first 2 games and was coming off a 14-game stretch with like 104 passer rating. And doing all the metrics, all the QBR and PFF and the
Yeah.
combo platter, all of them had him right near the top for those 14 games, which is almost a full season. That's where he was trending in Stefanski's offense. That's how it was going. He gets hurt night and day.
Yes.
QBR plummets, all the traditional normal stats plummet, and wins stop. I don't know how you say it wasn't the injury. I mean, yes, the injury. I mean, he has a unique whip motion that he's able to use because he's not a big guy. He's got a big arm, but he uses a whip motion that probably hurts his left shoulder like crazy under those
Yeah.
circumstances. And I think it clearly affected him, and the harness affected him. His footwork got comical. There's that
Yeah.
one video of him twisting his right foot into the
Yeah.
ground. He couldn't do some of the stuff that was almost unique about him. Like the throw that Drew Brees said not very many players can make that throw, which was turning around and rolling left, flipping the hips and getting set, and
That
then
was
throwing the
preseason.
ball. Yeah, not throwing the ball 25 yards, throwing it 57 yards on a rope.
Yeah.
You have to have the nimbleness of a small guy and the arm of a big guy.
Yes.
And that's what makes him pretty unique. He's like Drew Brees with a big arm, or Brett Favre 2 inches shorter, like whatever you want to call him. He has high end traits. He
Yeah.
does. He has especially the arm,
Yes.
especially the big arm and the big accurate downfield arm. If he's healthy and he's in an offense that lets him do those things, and he has receivers that don't let people do what the Chiefs did, and laid out that blueprint of we can man up to all of your guys.
Yeah.
we can man up to every single one of them without a problem.
Yeah.
Um, if you can get past that, I think this guy can be easily a 4,000-yard guy again with 8.3 yards per throw because he's always been high on air yards.
Hmm.
He's got the big arm. He's plenty mobile and nifty in the pocket. And he's a really smart guy. And I do think most of the talk about his inability to get through his progression started after the injury, because soon before the injury, Orlovsky did a film breakdown showing how much better he was getting through his progressions because he's still young in that offense. He
Yeah.
just had his first camp in it,
Hmm.
and he's still learning. And Orlovsky's saying he's getting through his progressions. Look at him IF-ing this safety for this touchdown pass. He's doing the nuances now that he's internalizing and becoming an expert at this offense.
Yes.
So I think all the talk that he is somehow, has slow eyes, or he doesn't process, or he's a first read quarterback. All of this started, and it's revisionist history now. All
Yes.
of it started after the injury. And it all seems to be going backwards to act like, no, 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 we all thought that all the time. No, we did not.
No.
That's just not true.
Yeah.
So that's my feeling, is that if Baker had sat down, he'd be starting in 2022.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, I think if he hadn't said, no, I'm not going to play for you, no, you shouldn't fly down to Texas and try to court me back onto the team, and yes, I dead solid mean it, I'm not playing for the Browns anymore, I think he would have been starting next year. I
Yeah.
think that offer they reformulated, that was historic and unprecedented, came when they looked at a complete lack of options and a team that did not want to take a year off waiting for the 2023 draft.
Yeah.
And there were no other real alternatives left. They were going to have to look at. I really think they were going to have to look at something like Mariota Willis combination would have been interesting. I know it sounds like you're
Yeah.
talking yourself into something.
Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah.
That's where they were. That's where they were, and so their organizational decision became, let's bite the PR problem. Let's pay him so much that he'll put us back, not only back in play, but just do it.
Yeah.
That's the decision they made.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, to your point, they knew, like, if we
Mhm.
can't get Baker, we gotta
Mhm.
get Deshaun. And
Yeah, I don't know what the other
I
choices
think
were.
that to me speaks about the way they must have felt about him. Like,
Mhm.
I get that there's this contingent of Browns fans on Twitter that think they know what they're talking about, and they think they understand Baker, and they think he's trash, whatever. Like, whatever, right? Clearly, he has value.
Oh yeah, even to the Browns. I know what you're about to say. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, if he didn't, then there's no big deal, right? You can go and find somebody that's the same, or that is similar enough, like a
Or a
Jimmy G.
reclamation project. You're looking
Yeah,
at Jameis or
yeah,
Marcus
Williams,
or
Marcus.
one of these guys who are who a lot of Browns Twitter had tried to say, well, they could be better than Baker too, because
Oh
at
my
that
God.
point Browns Twitter had gone so maniacal that anybody was better, and they were like, tell me why. I'm like, did anyone watch Jimmy Garoppolo throw last year? Did they see the flutters? He clearly had arm problems. Then he had arm surgery. He's not even throwing till July.
Yeah,
I don't know how you sell that to any fan base. And
yeah,
I like that guy. He seems like a great
yeah,
dude.
yeah,
And I hope when his arm's right again, he makes a comeback.
yeah,
But right now, that's not the answer.
yeah,
And everyone else I named, they're backups now for a reason, including Trubisky, who's going to start for Pittsburgh probably. They all had reasons they were shown the bench.
yeah,
So I know the Browns valued Baker and knew he was a better option than anything else they could do
yeah,
at that point.
yeah.
So
In that article, and I forgot who wrote it. It's escaping my mind right now, but came out a couple of days before even the Deshaun Watson stuff came out. That was kind of detailing that, like, the Browns know Baker would be a starter in at least half of the league.
sure.
And Andy Janovich was quoted in that
Mhm.
specific article talking about how tough Baker was, and how he wasn't not going to play even if you tried to cut his nuts off, and
Oh yeah, yeah,
stuff like that. I don't know if you get a chance to read that one or not,
yeah. I
but
saw that, and that had Scott McLaughlin in it, right? The
yes,
super
yes,
scout guy who was saying, "Trust me, 18 teams in this league would take Baker right now."
yeah,
And that the idea that I always say, look, it is not Twitter or Spaces or whatever. This is
Yeah,
the NFL, and
yeah,
they don't see Baker the way you see him. They
yeah,
just don't. I
yeah,
guarantee it. Yeah.
yeah, and I think ultimately that's what made me feel so frustrated because 2020 Baker and even 2018 Baker is the
For
Baker
sure.
we know the potential he has, and even I think he can go back. I think he can go higher than what he was in 2020 or
Why
20.
wouldn't he? Yeah, why wouldn't
He may
he?
not be able to. And so, like even going back through his years, like 2018, great rookie year. Nobody hold like some people like to say, well, he only got 7 wins that year. It was like well, Cleveland had 0 wins the year before. So like,
Yeah, and he only started
how are we
13 games.
right? How are we comparing those things?
Yeah.
Broke the rookie touchdown record. Second year did regress. Very clearly, obviously, had one of the worst. I mean, his first 2 years had two of the worst head coaches in recent NFL history. And so,
There's really good reasons in 2019. Did you know that OBJ ranked 93rd in separation, but we still threw to him like a number one wide receiver? That
no,
he was forcing the ball. You remember they wanted to be bombs away
yeah,
because that Tampa guy. If anyone's crazier than what's his name? What was the coach of the Southern dude? The who was the coach of the Browns that
um,
second year?
Kitchens,
Huh?
Freddie Kitchens.
Yeah, Kitchens. If anyone wants to bomb away more than him, it's the guy they brought in from Tampa. So
Yeah,
between the two of them, they're just like bombs away, bombs away. But there's no separation. You've got a guy who's got OBJ on his jersey,
yeah,
but he's not OBJ.
yeah,
He's injured and he can't separate. But they're saying throw, throw, throw. We got these star receivers. Let's go.
yes,
It was ugly and horrible. I was there for that opener, and it was one of the most poorly designed four verts kind of offense I'd ever seen.
yeah.
And nobody was open. And
O
it was
line
just,
was okay too. They
yeah,
weren't good.
it was a mess. It
Yeah,
was a complete, absolute mess. And
correct.
I don't, and was, did I think of all the times when I lay a little culpability on Baker, it's that year.
Yeah,
I think he did come in out of shape. I
yes,
think he had reached a certain summit. He's always had a chip on his shoulder. He did it. He won the Heisman. He was the first pick, and he was a great rookie. He played at a great rookie year. Any other year, he wins the ROI. He's got all the endorsements. He's got the love of his life. His life could not be better.
yeah,
And I think he got a little soft.
yeah,
And I think that he rectified that and showed up the next year in immaculate shape
yes,
and had a great year. Here's the real simple like timeline for me about why I feel like it's unfair is that he had to go into Stefanski's offense with no real camp or preseason because of COVID. We have a history of learning this offense, that it's intricate, it's very specific and timing based. There's not a lot of freelancing opportunities. And everyone who's learned it before, including Cousins, takes 6, 7 games before they hit their stride. Baker did that without a camp or a preseason and showed in-season improvement that was really impressive and just took off at game 6 and all the way through the playoffs, all the way through, the first playoff win in 26 years. Came in the next season, looked maybe even better, as Orlovsky said. So that's a 14-game sample. That's where he was trending. Talking about 2019 at this point is irrelevant to me.
yeah,
Like
yes,
now, this is where he is now in
yes,
this offense. It's going to be here. And we know what the other problems are with our outside receivers. We got to get faster and more dynamic. But man, you should have felt really good about where things were going with this guy. I think everyone did. Every top 10 list I saw, which he was on, whether you took it by QBR, PFF, the combination platter, he was close in everything else to being top 10, usually ninth, eighth, 10th. He was definitely a top 10 quarterback in 2020. I have no doubt about that. There was no reason to believe he wouldn't keep getting better.
yeah,
I mean, he's had so little time in it, one camp and 2 games before he got hurt. I have no reason to believe that he wouldn't have continued improving. Everything bad happened after the injury.
mm,
So for me, it's wipe it away. Just completely wipe away 2021 and get a look at the guy healthy again, help him out on the outside, tailor the offense. It's not going to happen, but that's what I think should have happened. And I don't
yeah,
think they should have been talking about anything else at any point. That's
yeah.
just me.
No, I mean, I'm right there with you, John. I mean,
Mhm.
that's how I felt. and it was just like it was almost asinine every week trying to explain to people that when you tear your labrum as a quarterback,
Mhm.
even if you wanted to say that, well, it's not your throwing arm, you should still be able to make throws consistently. Okay, not every quarterback throws the same either,
Right.
right? And
Mhm.
like you said, the specific type of throwing motion Baker uses, in which he does generate a lot of power, it's why he has an elite arm. Which again,
Mhm.
for whatever reason, some people that don't know what they're talking about said Baker don't have an arm. They're crazy. They
That is
gotta watch
ridiculous.
games clearly, but
He has a top 5 arm
he
in
does
the NFL.
genuinely. It's like there's
Yeah.
no debate about it, and I
He's
hate
3rd on Madden.
right. But like you said, like having to generate that torque, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what it's all about. And he can't do that with the harness. Like that's just genuine. And then that messes up your footwork and messes up everything else. And so I just for me, it was just like, how can we sit here and a year ago where everybody's having this conversation. The Browns have found their guy. Like everybody feels that way, right? And it's like it's the even year versus the odd year right now with Baker. 2018, everybody felt like 2019 is going to be the year, man.
Yeah.
Baker after 2019, oh, he's trash. He's not going to be good. 2020 is the only year. Okay, 2020 wins the playoff game. Oh my gosh, Baker, look at what they're going to do. Super Bowl contenders. 2021. To be honest, even after week one, right? I mean, the way he played against the Chiefs, nobody's looking at him and saying he's not a top 10 quarterback just because they lost to the Chiefs on a fluke interception at the end. He did get clipped. He should have thrown it away. He was
You
trying.
didn't know his back heel was gonna get tripped? You
Yeah,
don't know.
I
He was
believe he was
already
trying
trying
to.
to throw the ball. How
I
do you
was
kn
clear he was trying to throw it away.
That's insane. Yeah.
It happens. But even then, everybody, so national media, whatever, man, Baker balled out. Like he
Mhm.
maybe he does need to figure out those in the game situations. But you know what? We're not going to take anything away from him. Okay,
Right.
even week 3 or week 2, right? Completing 82% of his passes. Like, and
Yeah.
I will say this is my personal opinion. I think before the fractured shoulder, was he playing as good as he did week 1? No, but I don't think he was playing nearly as bad as people made it out to seem. The Vikings game,
I was
the
at
Vikings
the,
game was fun.
Chargers game. I went to the Chargers game. He was
Yeah,
throwing the ball pretty well before
yeah,
the next injury, the week 6 injury. I
okay,
think he might have been figuring it out a little bit. I
yes,
would say those 2 games, Chargers and the first Bengals game, it just looked like he was figuring out the harness. He wasn't gonna be full Baker. He couldn't get outside the tackle box and risk
yeah,
a big hit. There were a lot of things that were gonna compromise him that they could
yes,
figure out. It was probably going to get worse because
yeah,
they were going to realize they could keep him in the pocket. But he was
yes.
throwing the ball pretty well before the second injury. To tell
I,
you the
I
truth.
agree. I mean,
Yeah.
the one game that was bad, the Vikings game was bad.
Yeah.
I'm out there with you. Like it was
I
not.
thought someone stole his uniform. He,
Yeah,
he didn't
yeah,
look like him.
but you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Quarterbacks have bad games. Like he's not the only
Mm-hmm.
one that has bad games. But more than that, people were so tripping on he only got 7 touchdowns and three
Mm-hmm.
interceptions. Like that is game manager esque. He's not doing anything. Okay, you're not mentioning the injury. You're also not mentioning that the Browns have like 18 touchdowns through rushing through 6 weeks because
Yeah.
they have the best running back duo in the league.
It's
So
like
why would they
Aikman
not
and
run?
Emmett Smith. Aikman never had the big raw stats because they handed off to Emmett when they got anywhere close to the goal line.
Exactly, and that's what
Yeah.
happened, right? And that's what I'm telling
Mm-hmm.
people. And even to a larger conversation with OBJ, most of his touchdowns are goal line fade routes with the
Yeah.
Rams. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, you don't think Baker and him could have done that at
There's
least?
not
Like
a lot of downfield timing patterns going with OBJ. There weren't for the Giants either.
that's what
So
I'm
it,
saying.
yeah.
I'm like, so you saying him and Baker couldn't figure that out? Or Baker couldn't found his way to get 3 or 4 red zone touchdowns? Yes,
Yeah.
he could have easily, if
Yeah.
that's what they wanted to do. But why
Mhm.
would you when your running game is the best in the league, legit the
Mhm.
best in the league? You're sabotaging yourself at that point. So I was annoyed from that standpoint of like now people are acting like Baker's just not doing good. He can't throw because he has a low number of touchdowns. Even if you look at the rushing touchdowns, that makes sense. Then
Yeah.
you get to, like you said, the week 6 injury. I think that's when it really started to go downhill. And he has spurts. He has the week 9, the week after they trade OBJ. That was a vintage Baker game against the Bengals,
Yeah.
right?
That was the best. Yeah.
Absolutely balls out.
Yeah.
Again, even on national television, they're saying, "Oh, he doesn't need OBJ." Stephen A. Smith, who God bless him, half the time I feel like don't know what he's talking about, but he's even like, man, you know what? you can tell those boys will fight for Baker Mayfield because of what they did
Mhm,
out there for him against the Bengals, right? That was the narrative.
mhm.
Was they fought for their quarterback even throughout everything else? He came out, he balled out, and so
Yeah.
like, how do we? It just it he's the most polarizing quarterback I think I've seen. Like I don't.
There are gonna be books written. I guarantee you someone in Cleveland is like one of the reporters is gonna write the story of what this was. Like I've never seen anything like it. I've never seen a fan base so split. I've never seen such vitriol towards a guy who I didn't see do anything. It's not like he's Ryan Leaf. I mean, like what the hell?
Yeah.
And so I was on Twitter even just trying to understand it. Like,
Yes.
and so I
Mhm.
don't know if it was a lot of people lying in wait, you
Sure.
know, who just didn't like the guy, who were Ohio State fans and didn't like that he planted a flag.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an Ohio State fan. I didn't care. I thought it was kind of it was I'm hate that it happened to my team, but
Yeah.
I kind of love that he did it.
Yeah.
And um, I don't know, but I was sometimes shocked at like they would try to explain away anything good. If anything bad happened, it was definitely his fault.
Yes.
If something happened, like getting tripped from behind in that Chiefs game, like we were talking about, that had to be all his fault. He should have known.
Yeah.
Um, it's like these things you can put together a reel every week of quarterbacks not throwing to open receivers. They're probably not the first or second luck.
Yes.
They said you could do that for any quarterback in the league, but all of a sudden you've got to look at it all the time. Baker didn't see him, and if they're out of context. It's probably explainable.
Yeah.
And in this offense, it's very much first read centric. They want him to make pre-snap reads. The number one receiver is the guy in single coverage. 99% of the time, it seems like in this offense, as run by Stefanski, and a little bit like Cincinnati or Tennessee, you throw to the first look that you've determined at the line, and maybe the second
Yes.
look. But somehow blaming that all on him, that he had become blind because of the injury, it just got all so crazy. It drove me nuts. And I
Yeah.
wish I could have just detached from it, because it was you were dealing with irrational people who weren't really trying to like have a conversation and give a little. It was just I'm on a campaign my entire life right now as a Browns fan is about ripping this guy down. That's
And
all I
and
can
I
see.
and like I talked to you about, John, I don't get that. Like,
Mm-mm.
if you want to say Baker can be better on the field, say that, right?
Mhm.
Be honest about it. But where the vitriol comes from a guy that from day one wanted to be in Cleveland, which you have not
Yeah,
had that in 25 plus years, have
yeah,
not had somebody that wants. If somebody gets drafted to Cleveland, they don't want to be there. Like they go there
yeah.
to work because it's a business. They
They're
don't.
already thinking of their second deal.
Yeah, exactly.
When I
Like
can get out. Yeah.
they don't want to. Baker did
Mhm.
from the jump, and he wore it on his sleeve, and he fit Cleveland so well because he did want to work hard. He did have that personality that me against you. That's what Cleveland's about.
That's what Cleveland is. They were perfect for each other. Chips on the shoulder. I get
Yes,
my energy from disrespect. It was perfect.
yes.
Yeah.
And so then you have that, and then like people want to say, well, we're tying ourselves to mediocrity with this. Don't we want to win a Super Bowl? And I hear that. I do, but I'm just like, weren't you guys the laughing stock of not only the NFL but North American sports? Like the last 10 years, like isn't that where y'all came from essentially?
Yeah.
And now because you're winning 8 to 9 games on average, right? Obviously you won 11, but in Baker's year you won 7 the first year, 6,
Yeah.
11, and then 8. Like
Yeah. They're building a real team finally. Yeah. I
yes,
mean,
but is
yeah.
it Super Bowl? No, it's not. I get it,
Yeah.
but it's better than where you were, and that's where I'm like, can you not at least say, look, it's better than where we were. I do want to be better. Maybe if we can upgrade, I'd like to upgrade. If that was the conversation, I would be okay with it. Would I still say, man, I still think you can get more out of Baker. I still think that
Oh,
he hasn't shown
100%.
you everything because there's been things even this year with all the injuries. The team was injured. The tackles were turnstiles the whole year. From week one, Jedrick Wills had an ankle issue, and then Chris Hubbard, tears his triceps, and then you have Jack Conklin that's dealing with issues all year. So the
Yeah.
tackles are jacked up.
Receivers were right back where they were the year before, and you've
Yes.
got a compromised Landry again for a
Yes.
whole other year, just like the year before. He
Yes.
came in, he got I feel sorry for the guy. He had one game and he got a great shape. He looked quick, he looked lean. He looked so stiff the year before from the
Yes.
injuries. He looked great one game. He gets dinged the next game. He looks right back to like he's gutting it out, but he is not a
He's
scary
not the same.
receiver. He's remotely coverable on the
Yes.
outside and man
I'm
to
getting any
man.
separation.
Yeah,
Kareem Hunt.
DBJ is not sudden. He times fast, but he's not sudden.
Yes.
You got two guys who you can take on at the line. You just do, and so no one's open.
Yes.
And when you find a picture of someone who's open, he's probably not. He's probably the third luck, and he doesn't have time because his
Yep.
tackles are all injured.
Yep.
I just think it was a great idea to wipe that year away. I hope everyone does wherever he's playing. They realize that that year is not really a year to judge someone's play on.
And that's been my biggest piece, even with one given to Indy. Like I'm like, look, guys, like this is this is not the same issue. He is not the same guy. Because I get it, right? All of us Colts fans are like, we just did the 1 year, try to rehabilitate a quarterback thing of Carson Wentz. That didn't work out. Now on the field, technically it did. Now he the last 2 weeks he was really bad. I will say. But
Yeah,
if you look at
that was the biggest problem.
yeah, if you look at his stats throughout the year, though, I
They're
mean,
pretty good.
279, it's not bad by any measure.
Orlovsky just pointed out that for a 12-game stretch, he was like fifth in QBR in the
Yeah,
NFL. He had a
yeah,
really good stretch. I know the vaccine stuff at the beginning of
yes,
the year was a big problem.
that
He
was
has some questions about his locker room too. I
correct.
don't know. You're back to like he's from North Dakota. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
And
it was. That
yeah,
and that's ultimately what it was. And so I'm like, guys, like Baker's not the same. Like he relates to people better than I think Carson has been rumored to.
that's
Um,
what I always
he
heard.
still
Yeah.
fits like as perfect as he is for Cleveland. He still really fits in Indiana because
Hmm.
Indiana has a lot of that. The Hoosier mentality, like Indiana, especially basketball wise, obviously. But they have a lot of that too. Like we talk about being blue collar and hardworking. Like we literally pound a steel thing every
Hmm.
time we before we go onto the field. Like you know what I mean? That's kind
Yeah,
of what
that fits. What's the off? I mean,
differentiates.
who's the offense? Who's the OC? Is
Uh,
that Frank Reich or who's
Frank
there?
Reich. Frank Reich. I think Carlson plays. Marcus Brady is the offensive coordinator right now.
What
So
tree is it from? Like what offensive tree? Do you know?
man, it's a great question. I could swear that it's from that same offensive tree. And if you're in the comment section, go ahead and write it in the comment section. What tree Reich is from? Because he was in Indianapolis in the early Peyton years.
Hmm.
Reggie Wayne, they just hired Reggie Wayne again to be a wide receivers coach, which is awesome.
No, that's
But
cool.
Frank Reich was kind of amongst that contingent, and whatever they ran in Philadelphia during most of Carson Wentz's time there, Frank Reich was a part of that. I think it's still predicated on running the ball a lot. Um, I think it's a different type of style. I don't think he uses many tight ends as Stefanski did. I don't think he does a lot
So
of it.
maybe they go downfield more off the play
I
action or
really think
something?
that they do go
Because
down the
that would
field.
really play into it for him. Yeah,
And that's why I think he'd be a good fit. I
yeah,
genuinely do. And so ultimately, and rounding up my point here, just the vitriol that has come from some of the Cleveland fan base, I don't understand. Like I don't know what he did to upset so many people and make them talk about like they talk about him being some people call him a midget, they call him whatever. Like they they just talk about him so nastily. And I'm like,
yeah, yeah.
this is a guy that he did give you everything he had, and he
Yeah,
came
where's
here
it
and he wanted
coming
to
from?
he
Yeah,
wanted
it's still a
he wanted to
mystery to
give you
me.
a playoff win, and you're over here like, well, you didn't give us a Super Bowl, and we deserve a Super Bowl because we've been waiting so long, and I hear that, but it's like you can't at least respect the guy for what he came to do and how he did, like legitimately. I know it wasn't all Baker, like there are other pieces around him, yes, but him being at the quarterback, which is the most important position in football, we can all attest to. He gave you the stability to be where you're at now. He did,
Yeah,
and if you wanna deny that, you can, but it's still the truth. So how are you over
Yeah.
here talking about him in this way? Like you can't give him any respect, even if you don't like him, even if you don't think he's going to be the best quarterback in the world. Can you acknowledge, at least give the guy respect? And that's been
Yeah.
always been my issue. And the biggest thing with this whole debacle the last 5 to 7 days is like everybody's like now mad at him because he put out that statement. They're mad at him because he asked for a trade. I'm like, I mean,
Come
they,
on.
they said he wasn't an adult. They literally
Yeah.
said he wasn't an adult. Well, first of
Yeah,
all,
that was the
it's
end. I would
wrong.
have there's no way you could come back with your tail between your legs.
No.
Here's something I want to say about, like, we were talking about, can he win a Super Bowl? Like, we're playing in this weird golden age of quarterbacks. And the idea that, oftentimes in the past, like 10 years ago, there really were only 4 or 5 quarterbacks who could win it all.
Yes.
Now we're in an age where there always get 16 or 17 who could win it all for you.
Mhm.
Can Jimmy G take you to a Super Bowl? He already did.
Yeah.
Can Carson Wentz take you to a Super Bowl, even though he didn't get to play in it? He already did.
They did.
Like when everyone was talking about who those 4 or 5 guys were, one guy they weren't mentioning was Matt Stafford. He just proved he could do it. And I know he's a super talent, but he was never on that list. It was always Aaron Rodgers, Brady, a couple others. And if you don't have one of those, you can't win. That's just not true.
Yeah.
Like, we live in a league, and the ranking is not permanent.
No.
Like, the idea, like, if you're 12th this year, you're 12th for life. You could be third next year. There's just so much quarterback talent. And they all, in the right situations with the right coaches that are playing to their strengths. Yes, you can win a Super Bowl with them. I don't have any big doubt that Baker Mayfield can win a Super Bowl. I just don't. And I feel that there are other guys who are outside of that, idea that you have to have one of the 5 who could also win Super Bowls. I mean, I could list a ton of them that I believe in the right situation can take you there and win it all. And I
Yeah.
think it's going to be that way for a long time.
Yeah. I agree. Here's a comment from Travis Crosby in the section, just talking about who Reich's influence was. Worked under Jim Caldwell and Ken Wisenhunt. Greatest influence was Doug Peterson, who he worked for as offense coordinator in Philadelphia for 2 years. Obviously, he broke in as a low-level assistant for Tony
Mhm.
Dungy in Indianapolis. Bill Polian had been the general manager in Buffalo when Frank Reich was in Buffalo in the 90s. And so that's kind of how they started. And it looks like Mike McCoy was another coach that he had worked under as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure necessarily what offensive tree specifically it is
Yeah.
from, but I know that they like we run the ball a lot in Indy.
Mhm.
I mean, we do take shots downfield occasionally. There's a lot of intermediate routes too. Um, but it's predicated on having a very good offensive line, which we do have. We have one of the probably who will go down as one of the best guards of this generation.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
Hall of
Yeah.
Famer, and whatnot. And we have a really good center, Ryan Kelly, still trying to figure out the left tackle position. And we have a great guard in Braden Smith. So we have a solid offensive line at the very least, and hopefully we can get good tackles that be
Mhm.
there. We have Jonathan Taylor, who was the best running back in the league last year.
I mean, he
Um,
was good. He's gonna
I-
set up play action, that's for sure.
oh,
Like,
absolutely.
and when you run play action, I mean, the whole key is chunk plays. You want to get something open downfield because you cheated a safety up,
Yeah,
and you need a guy with a big arm. And so, running games and quarterbacks with big arms fit really together.
yeah,
Because the idea of a running game with a guy who's a dink and dunker is going to take your running game away.
yeah,
And that's why, to some level, even though I know the wheels came off and no one can seem to ever forget the Jaguars game, is that it worked because Wentz does have a downfield arm, and for a while there he was taking shots.
yeah,
And so, even if it wasn't perfect, the running game was great and the downfield stuff was there. And I
yeah.
think Baker could slide right into that. I really do.
So do I, which is
Mhm.
why I don't know why we haven't gotten him yet. And I don't know if it's
Mhm.
an us thing. I don't know if it's a Cleveland thing. I don't know, but they better figure it out because there's
I think
nowhere.
they're waiting for the market because I think Seattle's expressed some interest.
Okay.
I don't. I heard that Indy hasn't reached out, but they have maybe whispered interest. And then
I also,
everyone's still got to see what's happening in Carolina, New Orleans. There's other places too. So I think the Browns are probably waiting for enough competition to get the pick a little higher.
yeah, no, which I get,
Mhm.
and I've seen it's weird because I've also seen people that say the Colts have reached out and that they've been the most aggressive So it's
Yeah, I saw the same thing, and then I
weird.
saw today they said, "Well, no, it's they didn't," but that's typical, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like, every time the shit goes on, it's like everything's conflicting. You always have to do what, like a postmortem to find
yeah,
the truth. You gotta
yeah.
get to the other end and go, "Oh, okay, now I see what happened,"
That's what happened. Yeah,
which we're gonna be seeing more of.
yeah. So as we, man, it's been first of all, it's been a fun hour. Thanks for
Yeah. Awesome,
giving
thanks for having me.
time. It's been so fun. I do though want to give you just an opportunity as a Browns fan, just to give
Mhm,
your reaction in the last 72 hours, and I'll give you
mhm.
the floor.
Yeah,
Whatever you want to say, feel free. Because I think it'd be interesting for people to hear your opinion, your perspective on everything that's
yeah.
happened.
Um, I mean, it's definitely shaken my fandom, to be really honest, and I am gonna take a step back. I never say never, and I don't um, feel informed enough about Watson's situation, and I feel like it's difficult for me to understand it being all smoke because there are receipts, and he did visit dozens of strip mall massage parlors, and that's not a normal thing for an NFL quarterback to do. They have access to the highest level of massage therapy and sports massage and physical therapy and everything. So it wasn't about that. Um, so that's a struggle for me to believe that it's all smoke. I am swayed a little bit by the fact that he's not asking for NDAs and he's not uh, they're not offering to pay anybody off. He wants to stay in court with everybody. I do know there was a situation with management. There's a lot of accusations about the owner being a little racist,
Yeah,
and it's a little, it's there's I feel like out of respect that I'm going to withhold judgment, but the overall thing right now makes me want to take a time out. Part of it is I don't. It's hard for me right now to support a quarterback. I don't know if he's a good guy right now. I mean, I have a lot of fans from longtime Clemson fans who feel like they know that he's not a full-on bad guy. Um, I'd love to have a moment where he can, have his Kobe moment and he can come clean and say he'll do better and actually do it. But he can't do that right now because he's got a lot of court cases. So for a while, it's just going to be you don't know, and I don't love that. It's hard for me to embrace it and feel all the. I'm an old school fan. I like to love my team and love the players,
yeah,
feel a sense of affection. I felt really, really, really proud about the organization. They seem progressive. They seem inclusive. I like the analytics part of it. I like the involvement of a young black GM, women involved in the organization. It all makes me feel good.
yeah,
I'm a big snowflake, by the way, and so that all makes me feel good about supporting my team. Right
yeah,
now, this hasn't made me feel real good.
yeah,
And the idea of basically having to bribe a guy to come to Cleveland by being knocked out of the race and then getting back in the race by, giving him everything. That's not a warm feeling situation. That's not I want to come to Cleveland big sort of moment. So right now it doesn't feel warm and fuzzy to me, I
yeah,
guess. And I know some fans who are more analytical and they're also sort of fans of the whole league and they follow players and fantasy football and Madden and social media has changed that a little bit. And so the plug and play aspect of the NFL is more okay to them than it maybe is to fans like me. Not that an entire team can ever be homegrown, not that you shouldn't be using free agency, but a sense of continuity, of knowing the players and loving them and them wanting to be there. It's just, I like the warm feeling, like the Cavs right now. The Cavs are a team that's easy to love, and they
yeah,
all seem to love each other from all these different, like from DG to Love. The age difference is ridiculous, and they seem like best friends. It just seems really easy to love. I don't feel that way right now about the Browns.
yeah,
I would like to feel that way again. I would like to find out that the quarterback is okay for me to like in the future. That would be, make it easier. Um, and I don't like the way Baker was treated at all. And it was so exciting for me to for him to come to the team. So I feel like I'm kind of in a holding pattern, probably at least for the next season.
yeah,
It's not like I'm going to hide my eyes from the game. I'm sure I'll watch games, but I don't think I'll be wearing my gear around. I don't think I'll be social media, about the team a lot. And I just want to see how it pans out. And it's been a big deal for my whole family. I mean,
yeah,
we're on a lot of group threads, and um, we all feel sad. We
yeah.
just all feel kind of sad right now.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at like, well, I'll lean into the Cavs and then I'll lean into the Buckeyes and follow, other teams. If like Baker goes to Indianapolis, I could see that. I like San Francisco. I like the Rams. I lived in Kansas City for a long time. And, I know those fans that aren't as like immersed in the culture of their team like I have been, and I don't love it. So it's not going to be great. And I look forward to like having that again. But
Yeah.
I can't fake it, and I don't feel it right now.
Yeah. Um, here's one other thing I have you kind of look at before you go. Travis would like to know your thoughts on the ESPN's latest that the Browns did not speak to the attorney of the victims or the victims themselves.
Yeah, my reaction was that they started leaking that they had talked to women, and now not to be a smartass, I'm like, "What did you do? Talk to women around the office?" Like
Yeah.
like what is that? Like
Yeah.
women, no more than you can just talk to men to talk about the behavior of all men. You
Yeah.
can't talk to just any women.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have really liked to have heard they talked to some of the victims, or maybe some of the victims that dropped their cases, or
Yeah.
or somebody to hear like, "What's your side?" Like, tell me what happened, or tell me what you can tell me. But it doesn't feel like they did that level of investigation.
Mhm.
So I don't know. That certainly didn't make me feel better. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand that, and we'll just have to see where it goes, man. I mean, uh,
Yeah.
I hope the best for you and
Thanks.
Browns fans like you. I genuinely do. I have a friend of mine. I went to a small Christian college up in northern Indiana, and guy of mine was from Cleveland, a big Ohio State fan, um, big Cleveland Brown fan, and he didn't want Baker at first. I talked him
Hmm.
into it, and now
Hmm.
he loves him. Right, like me and him have been on the phone. We talked to each other more the last 3 weeks than we had in 2 3 years since we were in college together. But same for him. I told him the same thing. Like, man, like I feel for you guys, right? Because
Hmm.
you guys like Baker. You like where the franchise was going with Baker, and you felt like there was still some more to be done. Is
Yeah.
Deshaun Watson an upgrade on the field? Yes. Now there's these allegations that there's still a muddiness around it
Yeah.
all.
Muddiness around it.
On,
Yeah. It feels
on
a little
top of
dirty right now.
yeah, on top of the fact that like and it just to me it can't be ignored the comment that came out that not anybody, not just anybody reported it. Chris Mortensen said it on national television that they want an adult at the
Hmm.
quarterback position, and then you get a guy who's in 22 civil lawsuits
And
currently.
we saw
So
how that went over with his camp, which was
yeah,
not what with Baker's camp.
and
I
it
think
should.
that was the final blow.
Yeah,
I think that was the final blow. I think that if none of that happened, and if they could have handled this in a more discreet manner to say, there was probably an opening where they could have come back together. There was like a minute where I thought they can still come back and do this, and maybe it could be win-win.
yeah,
But I think that killed it.
yeah. When I saw that, when I saw
Hmm.
that he said that, I was like, it's over. I was like,
Yeah,
Baker's going back there because, like you said, just the way he's been treated,
yeah.
and just the unfairness of which and not even like fans are one thing, the media
Hmm.
is another thing. Which we talk about the Cleveland media all day. But then, like, just from your front office, like,
Yeah.
yeah, and clearly it came from somebody. I don't know who said it.
Hmm.
Came from somebody. Like, because again,
Yeah.
Chris Mortensen is not going to risk. Like, he is as well respected a person in the business as there is. He's not going to risk that by just throwing something crazy out there. Somebody said,
Sounds to me like Baker might know, because they've said that the Baker camp did believe it came from in the building. The question is if it came from Haslam, because Haslam offered to fly to Texas to meet with him directly. So maybe it didn't. Like, the assumption has been Haslam, but if he's the one flying down there to try to mend fences, it doesn't sound like it did to me. So it makes you wonder who it came from.
yeah,
And if he thought it was Stefanski, that's kind of the end.
that's the end. And like you said, like it just ultimately that was the bridge burner. And to
Yeah,
me, it's reasonable for that to be the bridge burner because
I think so too.
I'm not going to sit up there and let somebody who's currently courting somebody who is, again, for all the off the field issues you want to give Baker, like he has never been marred in anything like what Deshaun Watson is. And
I
for
don't think of him having any off the field problems, frankly. He's a
exactly,
married man, and he seems like he's leading a pretty normal life to me.
exactly, like the extent of off the field stuff was the whole, I'm sure you've heard about like the Cheesecake Factory stuff, or
That
whatever.
seems to be as utterly you know, supported by any facts as anything I've ever heard.
Exactly. And to be honest, even if it was really like, is that are,
Whatever.
is that what we're talking about? We
Yeah.
talking about acts in a in a Cheesecake Factory parking lot over But regardless of any of that, like he has not had anything. He's been besides you want to talk about social media, whatever. Besides that, he's been an outstanding citizen for Cleveland. Never
Mhm.
gave them anything to worry about.
Very involved in the community, in
Yeah.
charities, showing up for all the other events to be supportive,
Yes.
organizing off-season workouts. He's been a good guy. I
Yeah.
mean, I hope it doesn't have to continue, and I've seen some of it, the sort of trying to kick him as he goes out the door. It just adds to the. I mean, it's we're not going to get good Yelp reviews for Cleveland as a host. It's like it has looked pretty ugly, and I
Yeah.
think we need to stop. We don't want to be Philadelphia or worse. Like but it looks that way right now.
Yeah. And ultimately, that's my hope is that you guys figure it out. I hope you guys get a Super Bowl. I
Thanks, man.
know there'll be a question of, was it worth it? Because you guys, there's no excuse now. You guys have a clearly upgraded quarterback. You got everything you need.
Yeah,
If it doesn't work out, like I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna say I won't sit be here laughing at the organization.
I'll be doing
Like,
some of
hey,
it
oh,
too,
Baker
probably.
Mayfield. Hey, that's okay.
All
But
right,
hey,
man.
one other thing, real quick. Before we go,
Uh-huh.
um, there's a lot of people in the chat that wanted to know your Twitter. They like to follow you. They just have appreciated kind of your candor and just the way you come on and talk. So if you want to go ahead and say your
I don't
Twitter
even know
name,
what my
we'll
Twitter is. Do you
go
know?
ahead and follow you.
Did you have it
Um,
anywhere?
let me see if I can pull it
Isn't
up
it
here.
at J Scott Shep or something?
I think that's what it is. Yes, his Twitter is at J Scott Shep. It's
Yeah,
at J Scott Shep, literally. So go ahead and give him a follow. Obviously, as you guys have heard, he's a great guy, really reasonable, and even if we want to talk about the moral side of things, really really good perspective on life and how these things should be handled. So I've enjoyed getting to know him over Twitter and obviously having him on here. And truth be told, Jay Scott, like would love to have you come on another time, anytime
for
you want
sure.
to come on, you're welcome. But I've enjoyed having you, man. And
No, I'm a fan of yours. I like it. You're good at this. You got a future.
thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm passionate about senior sports and about senior sports in general, and obviously it kind of bleeds over to NFL, NBA if they go on. And I just last 2 years decided to pick it up. I'm a full time athletic director. That's my day job. I love doing that too.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
but this is just this is another passion of mine that I've always wanted to do. And I promised my dad that I would, so I
That's
finally
great.
did it
Well, if
after.
Baker goes to Indianapolis, I'll go see a game and I'll buy you a beer.
Yeah, let's do that, man. I would love that. That'd be amazing.
All right,
But
bud.
hey, again, man, appreciate you being on, guys that came. Thank you, and those of you who will be watching throughout the week, thank you again. Remember, we'll be doing the JP and Trav show Wednesday nights as normal at 9 p.m. Central Time. Don't feel free to check in. Everybody have a great weekend. Boomer.
Thank you.